Accusations of war crimes committed by Israel in the most recent Gaza conflict were given new legitimacy by a report published this morning. This came as Israel launched its own investigation into the conduct of its armed forces. Reporter Yasmin Khatun has the following story.
In the first in-depth report to surface documenting violations during Israel's recent war on Gaza, US-based human rights watchdog Human Rights Watch have accused the Israeli military of committing war crimes. This comes as Israel has announced it has begun criminal investigations into 5 instances of military misconduct during its 50-day Gaza war, which led to the death of more than 2,000 Palestinians. The announcement, conveyed at a briefing by the Israeli military, comes only 2 weeks after a ceasefire in the conflict.
الإعلان الإسرائيلي عن فتح التحقيق في بعض الجرائم الإسرائيلية في غزة هو قرار ليس له أي قيمة، لأنه لا يعقل أنه القاتل يحقق في جرائم، والاحتلال لم يجري تحقيقات لها أي قيمة من قبل. وبالتالي نحن ندعو المجتمع الدولي إلى عدم الانخداع بهذا التضليل الإسرائيلي الذي يستهدف التغطية على الجرائم الإسرائيلية ومحاولة الإفلات من الملاحقة القضائية.
Human Rights Watch investigated 3 separate instances where they said the military did not appear to target a military objective or were otherwise unlawfully indiscriminate.
Our report issued today found that in 3 different cases, Israeli attacks on UNRWA schools in the Gaza Strip, where thousands of people were seeking shelter from fighting, were attacked unlawfully. In one case in Beit Hanun, several mortar shells landed right inside the school. In the Jabalia school, some people had moved from Beit Hanun to seek shelter after the Beit Hanun school was hit, moved to Jabalia, and then it was hit several days later. Then in Rafah was the 3rd case we looked at, where an advanced missile hit a motorcycle that was right outside the gates of an UNRWA school, killing about 10 people there.
The laws of war obligate Israel to investigate possible war crimes credibly and to punish those responsible. But the timing of the inquiries have raised questions from many as to whether they might be an attempt by the Israeli government to preempt the impact of international investigations into the allegations of possible war crimes. With long-running scepticism, many are wondering as to whether on this occasion anything will change. Yasmin Khatun, The Report, Islam Channel.
Well, to discuss this, I'm joined in the studio by Joseph Willits from the Council for Arab-British Understanding, and on Skype we're joined by Dr Ghada Karmi, Palestinian writer and activist and a research fellow at the Institute of Arab and Islamic Studies at the University of Exeter. Welcome to the programme. So, Joseph, do you think that the announcement of the Israeli investigation into their own armed forces is simply a distraction, or could anything real come out of that?
Well, of course, I think we could see potentially small changes, and obviously a report is no bad thing. However, there is always reason to be cynical about it, that actually there's a culture of impunity when it comes to discussing Israel's military action. And the report needs to, any report needs to look into this, and there needs to be an independent external investigation, which the UN is doing, and that is important. We've seen reports like this before, and the Israelis have acted quickly in doing so. But at the same time, there are many occasions where people are just allowed to get away with things, and yes, small changes might be made, but we really need to make sure that the proper international investigation is allowed to take place, and we are holding the people that are the right people accountable for carrying out really bad things.
Ghada, do you think that although we might not expect anything very much to come out of this investigation by the Israelis, do you find that the fact they've had to announce it might be in some way a response to the very bad showing that they had in the sort of propaganda war around the conflict in Gaza?
Yes, I do think that. I think it's an attempt, and a very obvious one, I must say, to try and persuade popular opinion that taking the matter seriously, and particularly in the United States. But Israel has a very poor track record. In 2008-2009, the previous assault on Gaza, which was investigated by the Goldstone investigation, was the Goldstone report. Nothing came of it, and the Israelis did their best to rubbish bash Goldstone himself and make out that he was a self-hating Jew and all this stuff. But, you know, the idea that the perpetrator of a crime can be allowed to investigate his own crime and actually have that believable is absurd. It's absurd. The reality is Israel has rubbished the United Nations Human Rights Council, which is on course to investigate Israel's war crimes. It's rubbished it well ahead of its producing any sort of report, and now they're trying to make out that their own investigation is enough. Well, of course it isn't.
I mean, Ghada's made the point, and indeed the Hamas spokesperson in the report made the point that you can't really expect the perpetrator to investigate the crime. So, I mean, the thing is fundamentally flawed, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, Dr. Karmi was right to raise the issue of the 2009 Goldstone report, and effectively Israel has put that under the drawer. And in terms of, Israel has, many investigations into possible, failings in action. Another would be 1982 in Lebanon, where there was no accountability whatsoever in terms of Ariel Sharon and his involvement in 1982, and he obviously, defense minister at the time, later becomes foreign minister and later becomes the prime minister of Israel. We really need to make sure that there is this accountability, that if the international community is saying that Israel's actions are disproportionate, or they're saying that, for example, settlements are a barrier to peace, they need to put concrete action to actually say this will be investigated properly. And at the moment, there doesn't seem to be that discussion. All well and good saying that Israel's actions are wrong, but it is not followed up with action. And you're seeing this also. The response by Israeli human rights groups Yesh Din and B'Tselem, and they've also talked about settler violence, for example, that Israel has on countless occasions failed to protect and secure and ensure the safety of Palestinians in the West Bank that are victims of settler violence. There's no accountability there, and there's no on that basis also there's no reason why we should really say that this investigation is going to be substantial enough.
Ghada, what do you make of the reports that have come out saying that the President Abbas has blocked or hasn't acted on sending the Israelis to the ICC?
Yeah, this is a big problem. You know that Abbas and the Palestinian leadership has been urged again and again by the Palestinian people to take Israel to court at the ICC. And he has not done so. He finds all sorts of ways to get around it, to postpone it. The reason is that he is under pressure from the United States and from Israel and the European Union, who have threatened him that if he goes ahead with an ICC case, the money that is paid funding to the Palestinian Authority will be suspended. Now, the unfortunate part about all this is not only that it is unacceptable for Israel and its allies to actually behave in blackmail Palestinians, but also that Abbas himself doesn't come clean. I have no idea why he doesn't say to the world, look here, we are threatened with cutting off our lifeline, our funding, and what can we do? He should say that, and he should do it. There is another aspect to this, if I may. Abbas still believes that if he behaves himself, as it were, that he doesn't go to the ICC and he doesn't embarrass Israel and so on, that he will get something out of the negotiations with Israel. He still believes that he can resume negotiations with Israel, and that Israel and the United States will say, well, you have been very good, and you do deserve a reward. So I think that's the other aspect.
Okay. Joseph, what do you make of that? Because, I mean, many people, I think many observers will think that it's that Abbas's stance is self-defeating even in its own terms. You know, you're supposed to be, basing your political project on there might be some kind of settlement, and yet even something which in the grand sort of scheme of things is relatively minor, like sending the Israelis to the ICC, can't be done because you're pressurised out of it. It's eroding Abbas's own standing, apart from anything else, isn't it?
Absolutely, I think Abbas is being put into a corner by several parties, and this is only going to increase tension even further. And I think as we're seeing also though that not aside from Abbas though that even aside from the issue of Gaza, this issue of accountability cannot be emphasized enough. You're seeing land grabs, you're seeing home demolitions, and this is intensifying. I think what is crucial is that the EU does have the relevant levers to recognise Palestine, to end trade with trade with settlements, that kind of thing, and impose a ban on settlement goods. But we really, what is I think one of the most worrying things is that if we allow our so-called friends to act in such a way, whether it be in Gaza, in terms of settlements, in terms of settler violence, what will our enemies be thinking? Or if our friends can get away with things, and it's not just in Gaza. I mean, Rabbah, for example, is another example where we have allowed our friends supposedly to act with this impunity.
Ghada, what do you make of the stance of the Israeli regime now? Because in many commentators' eyes, it's come off worst out of this conflict in Gaza than it has done in any previous conflict with the Palestinians. Yet it's just announced a huge land grab, as Joseph was suggesting. Where are their heads at?
Well, I think Netanyahu is in a very difficult position because of the Gaza failure, really, the failure of Israel to realize any of its objectives in Gaza. Netanyahu's position is shaky. And he is very worried that he might lose power in the next election. So what he's done is to appease the right-wingers, to say to them, don't chuck me out, because here I am pursuing the colonial settler project, which is what you want. And you see, I'm tough. I'm not going to give in to the fact that the world public opinion has turned against Israel, that Israel is being criticized, etc. I am standing firm. That's the message he wants to give. It's not that he is unaware of the enormity of what he's doing. It's that he wants to save his skin, and that is the way to do it. Now, what I think is really important here, as it always has been, about Israel, people go on and on about how awful Israel is, but the fact is, it is tolerated. That's the problem. It's no good saying Israel is dreadful, it's doing this, it's grabbing that. Of course it is. But what do you do about it? Do you, as a world community, put up with this? Now, that's what's happened so far. As a result, Israel can be forgiven for thinking whatever it does, it'll get away with it. And so that's the other side to this land grab and the whole assault on Gaza, which was really unacceptable, a very big crime by any standards.
Okay, well, with that sobering thought, it's about time for us to wrap up this programme. Thanks to my guests and to you at home for tuning in. Remember, you can join on Twitter conversation with us by looking at the @Islam channel Twitter handle and looking at the hashtag #TheReport. Well, we'll be back tomorrow night, but from now we're going to leave you with footage from Brazil, where Rio's iconic monument, the Christ Redeemer statue, has been illuminated for a night to raise awareness about human trafficking. And with that, good night.